These aren't mine. Welcome to what is going to mostly become my Booktube channel. I'm Jordan. Some of you may know me from my main channel where I talk about AI. What you probably don't know is that I made that channel because all of my friends were tired of hearing me rant about it. And now all of my friends are tired of hearing me rant about the various books that I've been reading. So, new Booktube channel. I've been following some Booktube creators for a while. I think that they do really interesting analyses of different books, especially outside of like an academic context, where I think enjoyment of a book is like kind of underrated. I also have a huge history of reading things like fan fiction. I still probably spend too much time on Archive of Our Own every week, as evidenced by my screen time. And because of that, I certainly have opinions on different tropes and pairings and things like that, and other things that I think we tend to see a lot in like the TikTok famous books. So, this channel is going to largely focus on what I happen to be reading each month. And one of the big things that I want to focus on is, like, as you can see, there's this shelf behind me, there are floating shelves up here, but like you're not going to see a bookcase, like several bookcases full of books here. Nothing against those creators, but most of my books are going to come from the library. I also have a lot of books that I get through Libby, which is the app that most libraries have that lets you rent ebooks, and so you're going to see a lot of stuff like that, and I'm going to be going through like what I'm currently reading based on what I have rented on Libby at any given time. If that wants to focus, no, it does not. And so my hope in doing that is to both make people feel like reading is a bit more accessible, not having to like buy every single copy of every single book. Because of that, depending on the book, I also probably will not be doing like timely reviews of things, because when you try to request a book that is popular from the library, everyone else is reading it. In terms of things that I like to read, I'll probably be featuring a lot of literary fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, kind of new adulty fiction, and some romance. I tend to go through seasons, I guess, when it comes to books, where I'll go through a big like romance phase, and then I'll go through a big sci-fi phase, and then I'll go through a phase where I'm like only reading one author or something like that. There will also be some nonfiction. I will not be doing any, probably won't be doing any self-help, or if I do, there's going to be like a little bit of it, but it's definitely not going to be like the deep work white guys sphere of self-help, because I've read most of those and I don't particularly feel the need to platform them further. And then I'm actually working on a novel. I have been for a while, and one of my goals for this year is to get it to a final manuscript. I'm probably 60-70% done with the first draft, and so there may or may not be writing blogs that I throw in here, or like live streamed writing sessions in case you guys want to write with me. Lastly, I will be doing roughly monthly book hauls. It'll mostly be what I've gotten from the library in all likelihood, and so I will be going through that at whatever timestamp I put here. I'm still going to want to show off, and talk about the books that I am reading, what I like about them, what I don't, why I got them, things like that. But so because of that, what you will likely see a lot of is me talking about books that I got this month, some of which I will have read, of which I will be part of the way through, and some of which I will not have read. So expect to see reviews of some of the books that I hadn't read the month before in the video haul for the month after. I will probably leave links to like the bookshop link to the book in the description, just because I don't know how I would link to like your local library, and they will be affiliate links in all likelihood. But I don't do it to encourage you to necessarily buy the book. I do it so that it's easier for you to like find the book, and if you choose to buy it, then like you can do that, and if you choose to get it from the library, you can also do that. There'll probably be roughly 2 videos a week. That's what I'm guessing right now. Got 2 videos a week. There'll probably be roughly 2 videos a month. I'm not making 2 videos a week on top of my main channel. That would be insane. On top of my main channel, on top of my PhD, no. And so one will be that book haul, and then the other will likely be some rabbit hole that I found myself down on books. One that I think I'm planning for February is, I love V. Schwab. She's like one of my favorite writers. I've read all of her books. There's actually one of these shelves is, I think it's on this side. No, it might be in the middle. I think it's the shelf is a V. Schwab stack. And so I would like to go through and reread all of them and basically do like a tier list in which all of them are good, but I still rank them based on my personal preferences. If there are any other authors that you think would be interesting for me to do, let me know. So now we can get into my January mostly library haul. I'll actually probably start with things that I got from Libby. One is Two Nights in Lisbon. This is a book that was one of the Skip the Line books on Libby, so it's a thriller. The description looked interesting. I'm not usually a thriller person or like a mystery person, but it's female focused. It actually reminds me of that Netflix show where the woman's husband dies and then like she sees him on the security footage outside of her house, and I haven't actually seen it, but it sounds similar and it seemed like a cool show, so I thought it might be a cool book. So that is one book that I have from Libby. I know I said I wasn't going to do a lot of self-help. The next one is Cody Rigsby's, it's not a memoir exactly, kind of a self-help / memoir book. I don't know what you call this. I used to have a Peloton and he was my favorite coach. And so I saw that he had a book come out and I thought it would be interesting to read it, and it does very much sound like his voice, which has been fun. And then lastly for my Libby books is The 7-Year Slip. I have seen people already not be the biggest fan of this on TikTok. I was a big fan of The Dead Romantics, which is Ashley Poston's first book, and so I added this to my list before I think people started reading it on TikTok, and I'm still interested. I'm trying not to like spoil it for myself. We shall see if it is particularly bad. I'd be surprised because I did like The Dead Romantics, and so I feel like it's going to be in a similar vein to that book. So we will find out what happens. My bar for like the book after the author's first book being bad is currently the book Artemis by Andy Weir, which came after The Martian, which has just the worst female protagonist I've ever read in my entire life. I DNF'd that book. I think I made it 2/3 of the way through, and then I just could not stand that character so much that I don't even know where that book is. I did own it. I'm sure I donated it or something, but that book sucked. And I guess if you want me to do a review on it, I can get a copy from the library because I'm definitely not buying it again. But yeah, The 7-Year Slip has to hold up better as a full book by this author than Artemis did compared to The Martian. And that's a bar that you can trip over. So, all right, on to the physical books that I have. So one is Reasons to Stay Alive. This is a Matt Haig book. I've read a bunch of other stuff by him that's actually fiction. This is a memoir about his journey with depression, and I thought it would be interesting because a lot of the themes of his books, so The Midnight Library is I think the one that everyone knows by this author. A lot of his books are about like depression and like, what are we saying now? Unalive and things in that vein. And I thought it would be interesting to read about like the lived experience and perspective that he happens to be coming from as it relates to writing books like that. Next on the list is Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. I've read basically all the other books in this. I don't know if it's a series per se, but they all exist in the same universe. It's queer romance. I love a queer romance. One of the, I think this shelf actually is also my kind of queer romance shelf. So like Hank Green's books are on there. One Last Stop and Red, White, and Royal Blue are on there. I have many thoughts on that book and the movie. That could be its whole video. They're mostly positive, so I have watched that movie entirely too many times. Anyway, it tends to have all of the normal romantic plotline beats, but if you're looking for something that's like chill that you read before bed that's like not going to stress you out, I feel like books like this are a good option, so that's what I plan on doing. Next up, we have The Art of Brevity. This is a writing book about how to write really good short stories. I happened to see this when I was walking into the library to pick up, I think, this and something else, and I thought it was interesting because, as you can tell from this video, I am very long-winded, and this is also something that has come up on my YouTube channel, especially as it relates to someone who started doing long-form content and then short-form content became the new thing, and so every time I try to record short-form content, I run out of time because I enjoy exploring the nuances of things. There's also just the ADHD brain of like, anytime you tell a story, you go from like point A to point like C, F, J, M. Especially someone who would like to do more short form content, I suspect that learning the art of brevity will be helpful for me. Next up, we have Reign. This is the latest book in the American Royal series. It's a modern royal family take where some of the royal families in the United States. I read the first 3 sometime early last year, and if I'm being totally honest, I don't remember what happened. So at some point I'm going to have to like scan through Goodreads or something, or find some reviews that jog my memory as to what happened so that I can read this book. But I remember enjoying it, which is why I picked it up. And also because it's on my whole shelf for like 6 months because apparently a lot of people wanted to read it. And yeah, I'm gonna have to remember what this is about now. Second to last, we have the plot. I actually originally got this on Libby and then I didn't read it fast enough. And so I put a hold on the physical copy. I generally prefer physical books over ebooks. I have a Kindle. I barely use it because I tend to prefer the physical book. And so this is about a aspiring writer, someone who thought that they were going to be a novelist. They end up teaching in academia, teaching writing classes, and they have a student who ends up passing away, and it's discovered after the fact that he wrote this brilliant novel, and so the protagonist publishes it under his own name and gets all this acclaim until he gets a message one day from someone saying that he is a thief. And so it becomes, I think, both a race against time to figure out, you know, who is this person so that ideally your like entire reputation doesn't get tarnished, but also what the person who originally wrote the book, what their journey was, like what prompted this book, how it compares to their lived experience, things like that, such that he can, you know, understand what made this book great and also I think get some insight into himself. So I think that this will be interesting. I've heard pretty good things about it. And last but not least, we have The King's Assassin, Secret Plot to Murder King James I. If I'm being honest, the entire reason why I picked this book up is because I saw the previews for Mary and George, because I watched Red, White, and Wild Blue and became mildly obsessed with Nicholas Glitzine. And now he's playing a total bottom in this limited series, Mary and George, which is based on this book. And so that was why I picked it up. It's actually turned out to be much more interesting than I expected it to be, and I have a lot of, like, I don't know, thoughts on modern adaptations of stories like this. Stories that very much center men, because that's who was centered historically, but where the subtext implies that the women were actually the much more interesting people. So I'm halfway through this. I tend to get up and like read on a walking pad so that I make sure that I actually move my body as someone who works from home. So I think that this will be surprisingly interesting, and then I'll be curious as to what the adaptation ends up being like. So that's all we have for January. I'd love to hear what you guys are reading about in the comments, whether there are any books that you'd like for me to read or like for me to cover, whether there are like topics that you want me to cover in the comments. And otherwise, happy reading, y'all. Bye.